Howie Roseman, the executive vice president and general manager of the Eagles. Howie, by the way, thanks for coming on the show. But my first question, before I even get to the draft stuff, do you have anything to do with the food over there? Because I was there in Philly, for people who don't know, at the Eagles cafeteria. I was working the draft for the Eagles for their Eagles.com, and their food is so good. It is so good.
Exactly what to say to me, Ross. Like, I am obsessed with the food that we have for draft weekend, to the extent that, like, we're meetings, and then, Katie, who's been with me 20 years, she's like, "Hey, have you seen the menu?" I'm like, "I'm sure the menu's great." She's like, "Can you please look at the menu? Because I know it's going to become Friday or Saturday and you're going to care and you're going to say I didn't see the menu." So it is so important to me about the quality of food that we have. It's such a passion of mine. It's unbelievable. I'm so glad you recognized. Thank you. Thank you for recognizing
I mean, I had an omelet. I had a smoothie. I had fruit. What's it called? Like acai bowl or acai? I don't even know what it is.
And I had.
I mean, Howie, I think I tweeted during the weekend that I would come out of retirement just to be able to eat what you guys get to eat every day. It's unreal.
Now that's a different menu than we give the players now. I just want to be clear, like, we can't do that. And then we get some local restaurants here, favorites, it's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable weekend. In fact, my wife said yesterday, "What do you want last Sunday night dinner?" And, anything you want, you're done with the draft. And, our job's over, like I'm going on vacation, but I was like, you know what? Like, the last three, I don't even know. Like, I freaking killed it the last 3 days of food, So I'm glad you recognize that.
All right. So speaking of exciting, so I'm there, and it felt like, Howie, the trade up from 15 to 13 to get Jordan Davis, and then the A.J. Brown trade with the 18th overall pick. In my mind, that all happened in like 5-10 minutes. I know it was probably longer than that, but it felt like 5-10 minutes. How does that happen? Like, when did you start to lay the groundwork, and when did you have a pretty good idea that that was going to happen?
Well, to the credit of the Titans and J-Rob, John Robinson, tremendous general manager of the Tennessee Titans, our trade with them was done. But at the same time, we weren't going to make a trade with a first round pick and have a guy who had 1 year left on his deal. So we had to do an extension. Torrey Dandy, AJ's agent, we've done a lot of deals with. Obviously, Jimmy Sexton, long time relationship with him. So we just had to do it, but it wasn't done. So we're kind of dealing with the fact that we have 2 picks. And we had to make sure that first pick was right, because really that's the anchor. That's the anchor, like that first pick in the draft. And shoot, I'm not so sure Jordan Davis can handle an anchor. Like, we had the Penn relays this week. I'm not so sure. Man, that guy's a freak. So we had to do that. And then at the same time, like, we don't have the deal done. And so got to go and try to finish that deal, because, you want to be fair to John Robinson, like, it's kind of like, am I picking 18th? Am I, what's going on here? And at the same time, Philly, Ross, it. And just imagine that, like, we can't get a deal with AJ, and all of a sudden 3 days later, it's reported like we can't get a deal. We had AJ Brown, and we couldn't get him. Woo, boy, that wouldn't be good. That wouldn't be good. So, there weren't many people who knew about this. And so a part of it was like, we also wanted to have a competitive advantage of no one knowing what we were trying to do in the first round. So nobody trade up in front of us and get one of the players. If we had a receiver, that probably changes the approach for teams of our first pick. And, same thing with J-Rob. J-Rob wanted to make sure he got what he wanted. So we were like, we're going to not tell anyone, except obviously, Jeffrey knows, Nick knows. And then when we're on the clock at 18, we're just going to announce this trade, and then it's going to come out after that. So what was cool about it is we did the deal. I think we were done with the deal, either pick 14 or 15. And then, like, still the people in our draft room didn't know what was going on. And then we brought everyone in, we're on the clock at 18, and I'm sure people had favorites who were going to pick there, and basically said, hey, we traded the pick. And, I think people were a little disappointed we traded the pick, and I was like, and we got AJ Brown. Here we go.
So that's interesting. So you had the trade parameters worked out with the Titans, but you were literally on the clock with A.J. Brown's agent, because if you don't get him signed to a contract or agreed to by the 18th pick, you wouldn't have done the trade. So that's got to be about as intensive in negotiations? Because usually you have time for any kind of contract negotiation. You're talking like a span of minutes deadline to get a big contract done.
Now we are dealing with it the whole day. So it wasn't like that was we're starting it when the draft starts. We're dealing with it. But yeah, we had work to do, and credit to everyone involved.
Yeah, but you had a deadline. You had to get it done. You also, second year in a row, you moved up a couple spots to draft the guy you really wanted. Last year, Devontae Smith, who had a tremendous rookie year. This year was for Jordan Davis. Walk us through those trades, too. You talk about the parameters with the Texans, I'm assuming, before the draft, and you just kind of have intel, or you have a gut feeling, or just there's a decent chance that the team in front of you might like the same guy?
Well, obviously, tremendous respect for the Baltimore Ravens, and they got a tremendous player. I think for us, it was important for us that we got this player, this fit. It just made sense for our team and how we wanted to build it. And so we just didn't want to take the risk, and I'm sure they're ecstatic about the player they got. He's a great player and a great person. So I don't want to say I knew what they were doing because, Eric, Ozzie, Coach Harbs, I mean, those guys are really good at what they do. I think for us, it was just ensuring we got the right player for the Philadelphia Eagles.
So let's talk about Jordan Davis. I love the guy. I was trying to get him to win the Heisman last year during the season. I guess the one critique I think is interesting about him, Howie, is the lack of pass rush stats and pass rush production. But what's funny to me about that, I guess, is that's the same thing people are saying about Trayvon Walker, who was the number one pick in the draft. It's the same thing they're saying about Wyatt, who was a first-round pick. And looking at the stats for Georgia last year, it almost feels like your third-round pick, Nakobe Dean, with 6.5 sacks. Like, there's only so many stats to go around.
Right. Well, and I think also, you got to look at what they're asking him to do there, right? For sure. You also have to look at the fact that, and our scouts, our analytics group, like because these are the conversation in the draft rooms, like convince me that I shouldn't be worried about this, because you see it in his body. I mean, you see him as a nose one-on-one with the center. You see the pushback. You see him looping on stunts, and you see he's got closing speed. And I think one of the great points was this team won a lot of games by a lot of points. And so they have a lot of 5-star guys. Is he playing in the fourth quarter when, all due respect, they're beating Georgia Southern by 40 points, right? Is that a situation where he's going and he's just, they're winning by 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. He's just rushing, you don't see that as much. And I think the same thing, he had a sack against Alabama that was called back. There was a penalty that doesn't count. No, does it change now when he's got 3.5 sacks or 4 sacks? So I think for us, we knew what was in his body. We knew what kind of player he could be. I mean, this is a guy, even saying all that, all the awards, was he top 10 in the Heisman voting, right? Won the Allen Trophy. We're not talking about a guy who wasn't productive, helped, the number one ranked defense in the country. So we understand all that. And obviously, listen, if this guy had 8 sacks, would he be anywhere near the 13th pick in the draft, Ross? No way. I mean, the guy's going in the top 5.
Well, that's what I was going to say. If Georgia had him out there for more obvious passing downs, he's a top 5 pick, and you guys don't have a chance to get him in the first place. I mentioned the third-round pick, Nakobe Dean. There's a lot of comments that came out as he was falling in the draft about his health. I guess, can you just walk us through the process? I guess different teams, doctors have different opinions. What is the process for evaluating guys, grading their health, and what were you told?
Well, I think the first thing is that's a huge part of why we go to Indy in the combine. And there are guys who go and have more information, and then teams, they share medical information. That doesn't mean everyone's got the same opinion, but they share, hey, we got more risk, we got less risk. And our docs do a great job of that. And then you have a medical meeting about a week before the draft. Some teams kind of maybe do it earlier, some teams maybe later, but and we basically say, this is where we're at. This is where we are on these guys, and we're going to put them on the board or not. If this is a foul, we're not going to put the kid on the board. And so, coming out of that medical meeting, I didn't think the issue with Nakobe was the medical. I thought the issue with Nakobe was if we don't take him in the top 20, are we getting this guy? Probably not, right? He's probably gone. And so when we got into Friday, you have these conversations with your docs, and you basically say, hey, here are a couple of guys that we're looking at 51. Nakobe's there, and they kind of re-walked us through it. And at the end of the day, we decided to take Cam only because stubbornly convicted about O-line, D-line, right? Like those guys are the same, but that's how we roll here, and it's like you got to stand for something, and that's what we want to stand for. And so we took Cam, but those are the two guys, and I'm not going to lie, I'm sure a bunch of our scouts were, love Cam, but also like, man, that's Nakobe Dean. And so then, it's kind of like, and at that time you're saying, hey, this guy's falling, you guys good? And yeah, we're good. And then he's fallen more, and then it almost becomes like, we must be missing something here, like we must. So there's probably between our pick, the first 10 picks, you're just like, he's going, so you don't even worry about it. You're so far away. But as we got about 15 picks away, like I'm superstitious, so I didn't want to jinx it. Like I didn't want to, because I really wasn't anticipating him be there. And I think as we got closer, I'm like, are we sure? Like I think I like 3 times I call, are we sure? They're like, this is Howie. If he's on this team, he'll be out there rookie minicamp next week, And so then it's just like, let's take Nakobe Dean, like, right? Like, it doesn't matter. Like, it was funny because we got a few trade calls at that point, and obviously we didn't have a lot of volume in this draft based on the trades we did in the first round, and we started with 10 picks and definitely didn't end up with 10 picks, but it's like we actually got our amazingly good offers in the third round, and some of those trades ended up happening, so you can look at them, but it was like, man, we can't mess around. I mean, Nakobe Dean, it's like, is there a more Philadelphia Eagle than Nakobe Dean?
Love it. Howie, really appreciate the time. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Appreciate you having me. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. There he is, Howie Roseman, the Eagles executive vice president and general manager. They had one of the more eventful drafts, that's for sure.